The Rodeo Joe Show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Rodeo Joe Show. I am going to be covering Week 6, the Thursday night game. I will preview the Sunday games that we have on tap, and then on Monday, give you guys the results, how I feel about it, and a preview into Monday night's game against the Lions and Packers. You know, there's not really much that can be said about the Thursday night game. I'll just get right into that. It really, you know, we kind of just seen this coming. I know I said it was, I believe New England was 17-point favorites in that game. Ended up winning the game 35-14, put them to 6-0, and put the Giants 2-4. Not as impressive as what you would think. You know, you look at that game and you think, man, that's a heck of a performance. You know, 21-point win. I mean, what? How could you be critical of it? And you know, honestly, it all comes down to the offense and Tom Brady. You know, he only factored in 14 of those 35 points. I mean, a win is a win at the end of the day, but he didn't play particularly well. The defense, as always, did. They forced 4 turnovers. They actually got a blocked punt that they returned for a touchdown and a scoop and score for a touchdown. So, I mean, there's 28 of your points right there. You know, and Brady didn't have a passing touchdown again and threw another pick. He did manage to have 2 rushing touchdowns and actually broke an NFL record. He's the oldest player at 42 years old to rush for 2 rushing touchdowns in one game. But, I mean, if Frank Gore keeps playing the way he's playing, he might break that, you know. But then again, you know, Tom Brady wants to play till he's 50, so, you know, who knows. But I got to say, honestly, all jokes aside, you know, I know we always kind of see New England struggle at times, and we just immediately want to just jump on the whole Father Time thing, and this is the end, and Tom Brady is done, and well, look at him, he's fallen off, and he always proves us wrong. But I mean, you can't discredit it when it's there and when it's happening. You know, it's just he just defies the odds most of the time. But eventually, you know, that's gonna run out, and Father Time is undefeated, and I don't know. I mean, I'm just not seeing a whole lot of old Brady that we, you know, come to expect. I mean, if you look at the box score, you know, he was 31 for 41, 334 yards. I mean, that looks like a pretty good day. But if you actually watch the game, he missed a lot of throws. The interception he threw was a bad throw. He was going for, he just, I don't know, it just was not your typical pinpoint accurate Tom Brady that everybody's so accustomed to seeing. It was a poorly thrown ball. And however, you know, he did move into second in the NFL's all-time passing yards list. So there was some good to be had with that game, I guess, as far as if you're a Tom Brady fan. But like I said, look for this to be kind of, you know, I mean, if he doesn't step things up, look for them to be, you know, overtaken in this AFC, because, I mean, I'm always going to, you know, have a slight edge in favor of the Patriots just because of what they've been able to do, and, you know, how they seem to have everyone's number in play, you know, up to their abilities when they play, you know, a good team. I don't know. Just watch out for it. It's going to be a revolving story for sure, you know, as the weeks go on, because, you know, when you look at an aging quarterback, usually they start off pretty hot and then they fade off towards the end of the season. But I mean, we're only 6 games in and we're seeing a decline. So I don't know. It might be time for New England to start looking for the successor to Brady. But that's all I got out of that. And the Giants, they tried, but the defense was just too much for them, as to be expected. And I believe it also made New England, gave them, I think it was 19 straight victories against first or second year quarterbacks. So historically they just eat up young quarterbacks. I mean, that's just what they do. I mean, Belichick's just known for that and that team. So, tip your hats off to them. They're 6-0. They're the only 6-0 team in the league right now and only undefeated team in the AFC, so they've got something going for them. But moving on from that, I want to kind of get into some there's just a few things player-wise with some injuries, key injuries, and this, that, and the other. It's just going straight into the AFC North. We have a couple things. We have A.J. Green actually returned to practice for Cincinnati, so that's a good sign. There was rumors of trade talks and stuff around the league, which you know how the media is. They kind of put this out there, and then everybody's coming out and saying, well, that's, he's in a contract year, and it'd be great for the team to rebuild, and he'd be a good piece to move, and it'd be a service to him as well to get him on a winning team so that he doesn't have to deal with being on the Bengals anymore and actually can play for a championship contender. But you wouldn't know that, talking to him. He loves Cincinnati. He wants to be here. He said the money isn't an issue. He says he has plenty of money. He says that he knows that it all comes down to him being healthy and him performing well. I mean, he's just the most straight-cut, honest, good, humble receiver you could ask for. Outside of Larry Fitzgerald, which Larry Fitzgerald's been doing this for a long time, so it makes sense that he's this way. But both guys are just complete class across the board, and it's something to be that talented and know that you're looked at as one of the elites in the game. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald not so much anymore given his age, but he was for a long time, and he still is a productive wide receiver. But anyway, like I said, just complete class across the board. It's just two of the best receivers you could ask for in a very diva-driven wide receiver league. These are two non-divas for sure. But moving on from that, we have some injury news. Steven Nelson, corner for the Steelers, was listed earlier this week as questionable. He's been downgraded to out. So he's not going to play. Artie Burns is going to take his spot, so that's definitely going to be a big hit to the secondary because Artie Burns pretty much lives up to his last name. He gets burned very often. So then we have Alvin Kamara is listed as questionable now. He's had very limited practice with an ankle injury, so that's something to keep in mind here. The Saints got a tough game this weekend, so that's something to look for. I mean, hopefully he can play, or else they're going to be in some serious trouble. And then lastly, it was reported that John Elway came out and said that no Bronco players are on the trading block. He said that they just, everybody just needs to step it up, and everybody together does collectively, and try to get this thing together and rewrite the ship. So that's something with a struggling team. You think they try to piece some or get some pieces, some draft picks or whatever to build for next season, but they're not in tank mode yet. They're trying to still make some positive out of this season. And that's all I got for that. We're going to be moving on to the games, and I've mentioned this before in previous episodes and stuff, and I think I might stick to this current format. Just let me know if you guys are interested in me keeping it this way or like it the old way. But I want to just start off with the AFC North with when I'm covering games and previewing them, reviewing them, all of that. I just feel like I just like that. It kind of seems to flow a little bit easier for me that way. And it's not going to be exactly in chronological order either, because obviously Pittsburgh plays the Sunday night game, so a little bit out of order, but for the most part, outside of these divisional games that I'll cover, everything should be pretty much in chronological order. With the 1 o'clock games I'll speak about first, obviously, and the 4 o'clock games. Then Monday night, talk about the Monday night game. But with all that being said, we'll go straight right into the divisional matchup with the Bengals and Ravens. Bengals 0-5, Ravens 3-2. Ravens are 11-point favorites in this game. If you look at this game, you know that the Bengals historically are pretty good against the Ravens, despite the success that the Ravens have had, on the contrary to the lack of success that Cincinnati has had. But yeah, they tend to play up to Baltimore. Many recall a couple years ago the game that pushed Buffalo into the playoffs and started that big, Buffalo fan appreciation to donating to Tyler Boyd's charity and Andy Dalton's charity. They spoiled the chances for Baltimore of getting into the playoffs, which Baltimore had, I think, like a 90-some% chance of getting into the playoffs up until about 2 minutes left into that game. And so, they took the lead late, and then obviously for those that know it or don't know it, there was a big pass to Tyler Boyd on a 4th down, I believe, and Bengals won the game and sent the Ravens packing and sitting on the couch for the postseason. But this is a new year. I don't see it happening. If I were to give the Bengals a chance, I would like them to have a couple wins under their belt first before going into this matchup, because Baltimore's not an overly impressive team, but Cincinnati's not an impressive team at all. So, and if this game was played in Cincinnati, I might give them a nod there, just based on that success that they have with Harbaugh coached Raven teams. But I'm not this week. I like the Ravens. Something else to look for is, the Bengals have a lot of injuries, and they've got a couple that came up this week. Carlos Dunlap is out. Ryan Glasgow, Cordy Glenn out again. Andre Smith is out. Kenny Wynn, defensive end, is out. I believe they're moving Billy Price. They're going to throw him into the rotation at offensive line. I think he's going to be playing guard. So look for that, see what that does, because the offensive line didn't play particularly bad last week, only gave up 1 sack. And Mixon seemed to run the ball pretty well, for the most part. Not what they need him to do, but given what they've done prior to that, he did well. So yeah, I just look at this game and I just think that you're going to be down a couple solid players on the defensive line, especially with Dunlap being out. That's huge. And Baltimore isn't a team that really lights it up throwing the ball, but anybody that reads the blueprint on how to beat Cincinnati, which everybody that's played them this year has done it, you run the ball, and Baltimore runs the ball very well. So they don't have to worry so much about being one-dimensional in this game, because whatever they choose to do is going to work. So running with Ingram and Jackson, I think it's just going to be too much for Cincinnati. I don't know if it's going to be quite an 11-point game. I think I might take the Bengals on that spread. I think it might be a little bit closer. But, yeah, I don't see Cincinnati winning that game. It's going to be Baltimore all the way. And I think Baltimore's going to just jump out to an early lead and just kind of sustain it. The Bengals are just going to claw back and claw back and claw back, and then at the end of the day, it's just not going to be enough. And then moving on to the Seahawks and the Browns. Seahawks 4-1, Browns 2-3. Seahawks are 1-point favorites, which is kind of odd considering how, I'll get into this later on in this episode, but they've really kind of emphasized home field advantage, at least Vegas has, and I really don't see why, because it's really not been much of a factor this season in the NFL. I mean, it's kind of a college thing. I mean, college football, the atmosphere is half the battle when you're the opposing team. With the exception of a couple of venues in the NFL, I mean, even Dallas, as big as a stadium that they don't have much of a home field advantage. I think teams feel very comfortable playing there, and I just think it's too big of a stadium to really kind of oppose a 12th man, if you will, steal a page from Seattle. But Seattle is definitely a tough place to play. Lambeau, late in the year, is a tough place to play. Foxborough is tough to play in. And obviously, I would definitely put the Saints. Playing at the Saints is pretty tough in that dome. But outside of that, I think anybody can beat anybody anywhere. But anyway, moving on from my little home field advantage blunder there, I like the Seahawks in this game. Russell Wilson has just played phenomenal. You could argue that he's number one in the race for the MVP. Nobody's played better quarterback than him so far this season. I mean, how could you argue with 12 touchdowns and no picks? I mean, the guy's just – he seems like every game he's just getting better and better. And some of these throws that he's making, too, have just been just spectacular. And good news is for Cleveland, though, is they have Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams, and Kendall Lamb are all questionable. That's all that is showing up on their injury report as of today, Saturday. So that's good. I know Cleveland went with four people in their secondary for a couple weeks that were out and had just 4 new guys that came in and played pretty good, actually. So that's a good sign for them. You just don't know what you're going to get with Cleveland. They just, some days, it's just they have the potential to just be explosive, and they have times where they're, what they were on Monday night. I just think this game really just comes down to Russell Wilson outperforming Baker Mayfield. I think he's I don't know. He's really struggling, and I haven't been a huge fan of the Freddie Kitchens hire. I think that's not what he needs right now as a young quarterback. People tend to forget that he is a young quarterback just because of how well he played last season. But I think he needs a veteran head coach that's been there before, and maybe have Kitchens as the OC. I just don't see him as a good head coach. I really don't, and I think all it does is conflict with Baker. On top of that, the offensive line isn't playing very well. He doesn't really have a whole lot of time to throw. If Cleveland can get somewhat of a pass rush going, they could give Russell some trouble, but then you look at the X factor. I look at how well Seattle runs the ball. They average 122 yards a game this season. And I know that a lot of it was inflated last week with playing San Francisco and how well they ran against them. But Cleveland's defense is averaging 150 yards against the run. That's not good. And I think that's just going to be the X factor that just seals it for the Seahawks. I think it'll be a competitive game. It'll be close. Cleveland will play a lot better at home. But, I don't think they'll just come out as flat as they did on Monday night. They just had everything bad going for them. And, they played a red-hot San Francisco team. So look for it to be a closer game. But I really do like Seattle in this. We got the Sunday night game with the Steelers at the Chargers. Steelers 1-4. The Chargers are 2-3. The Chargers are favored by 6 points in that game. Oh, man. This is kind of a tough game to call. Like I said before, I'll just get right into it with the injuries. Pittsburgh's injuries are not helping their case right now for what they're trying to do. They're going to be without James Washington, obviously Mason Rudolph. Devlin Hodges will get the start for Pittsburgh, obviously. Mark Barron, our linebacker, is out. I already mentioned Steven Nelson. And then the running back, Jalen Samuels, he's going to be out as well. This could go either way because, we look at oh my gosh, about did it. I did this earlier about, I think, a couple weeks ago. I almost did it, but I didn't do it all the way. It didn't completely come out. But the LA Chargers, they're not the ones that we seen last year. You expect them just to come and just get rolling just like they did last season. They started off slow and then they don't look like that same team. I mean, they just make these just boneheaded plays, like turnovers, and the most crucial parts. Last week they had 2 turnovers inside the 5. Getting ready to score, goal line, red zone, about ready to just punch it in. Makes a completely different game when you lose by 6 points. Turn the ball over. Can't do that. Can't do that at all. But I like the Chargers in this game, but it could be a very interesting game for sure. One thing is that I think Hodges is comfortable. I feel like he's ready for this. He seemed to play really well when he came in. He didn't seem fazed. Actually, I saw that he is the all-time leader in pass yards in FCS history. He threw for 14,584 yards down there at Sanford, which somebody confirmed to me where that was, so I owe them $10. That's nice. It's in Birmingham, Alabama, in case you guys were wondering. But regardless, I just think the Chargers will be a little too much being at home. Pittsburgh traditionally does not play very well when they go out west. I've mentioned that before. That's really really where I'm sitting with this game, is just based on the travel. If they were at home, I like their chances a lot better. If they really want to have a good chance in this game, they got to run the football. They've got to get Connor involved. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but I've just noticed that they haven't had success when they don't run the ball very well. And I even looked it up, and I see that they've had 100-yard rushing game in the last 12 games, and the record is 4-8. So when they were kind of declining last season, we all know how that all played out with Antonio Brown and everything like that. I don't need to really discuss that. I mean, from then till now, in this season, they haven't made running the football a very big focal point of their offense, and it shows. I mean, 4-8 ain't going to cut it. So they need to do that. At least get something going with it. It'll make things a whole lot better, make the offense more balanced, make things a lot easier for Hodges. I think if they can do that, they have a good chance of winning this game because, like I said, this Chargers team isn't impressive at all. 6 points is really, really generous to them because they're not really worthy, in my opinion, of that kind of a spread. Like I said, if Pittsburgh can get the pass rush going, get some turnovers because they are very aggressive, very opportunistic defense, and they do get to the quarterback, they have a chance. They really do have a chance in this game. This is one of the harder games. I look at the Seahawks and the Browns game, and then I look at this game, and I like the Steelers' chances at LA better than I like Cleveland's chances at home. So that's really saying something. We'll just see. We'll just see how it goes. And moving on outside of the AFC North, that covers all the AFC North games. We'll just go straight into a 9:30 kickoff in London with the Panthers and Bucks. Panthers are 3-2. The Bucks are 2-3. It's an NFC South matchup. Look for a pretty good competitive game. The Panthers are favored by 2 points. Yeah, I mean, home field advantage obviously doesn't play into this at all. But this is the second meeting already between these two teams. They played earlier this year. Tampa Bay won that game 20-14. But Cam Newton was starting. And Kyle Allen since then has thrown for 5 touchdowns, no picks. He did have that game against Houston where he fumbled, I believe, 3 times. So he's not perfect. He needs to clean that part of his game up. But one thing he doesn't need to clean up is his record, 3-0. I like the Panthers in this matchup. But it's obviously a divisional game. It'll be competitive, I think. It'll be close. Jameis Winston has played better than anybody could have thought he would play. He's been very good. I believe he went I think this is 2 weeks in a row now that he hasn't had a turnover. So he's all the bad knocks on him, he's fixed as far as that, because that was nobody could question his arm strength, his mobility that he has, but he was very turnover prone, and he's been playing pretty clean ball, for the past couple weeks. So that always keeps him in it when you have a guy like that can do that. But surprisingly, I found that Tampa Bay has allowed over 400 yards on defense. Not a strong defensive team, knew that, but they only allow 69 yards on the ground. So McCaffrey, will he have as big of a day as he had last week? I don't think so, but get him involved in this game. You need to. I mean, he's obviously the bell cow of this team. It's the offense runs through him, especially having Allen at quarterback. And if he keeps this up, man, I don't like Cam's chances of coming back to this team, really, because you look at it and, I mean, is he really the best option for Carolina right now? And, I'd stick with the hot hand, and Kyle Allen is definitely the hot hand. It's a very tough game to pick, but yeah, I do like Carolina in that game for sure. It'll be a good one. London's going to get a treat. At least they should. Next game is going to be what should be, I should say, a good one, a very good one. Got the 3-2 Texans at the 4-1 Chiefs. Chiefs are 4-point favorites in this game. This is actually a matchup between two quarterbacks that were they're probably the two best quarterbacks in that 2017 draft class. This is also the same draft class that Mitch Trubisky was drafted in. It surprised everybody, but for the most part, that's worked out pretty good for Chicago. This is a really tough game for me to call. I could go either way with this. There's sides of Kansas City that I obviously like, and then there's sides that I don't like, and I could say the same thing about the Texans. But when it comes down to it, I don't know how I feel about Kansas City because they look banged up. I mean, they don't look banged up; they are banged up. But Mahomes, he looked like he just kept getting up. He was getting smacked around a lot in that game against the Colts last week. I don't know how serious that was or how it is, if it continues, if it's a lingering injury, or he needs to be getting some better protection, and he's not getting any favors with his O-line being banged up. He doesn't have the weapons, with Watkins being out, Hill's been out. That's why I like Deshaun Watson and the Texans in this game. If you really look at the Texans, they're one bad drive where they had a costly fumble against Carolina and a miraculous comeback by Drew Brees late in that first game, that Monday night game. This team could very possibly be 5-0. Now, I know they had that game against Jacksonville where Jacksonville did everything they could to lose that game and did lose that game, and Houston only won by a point. But this is a very talented Houston team, and I don't know. I don't think the Chiefs are that good defensively, so I look for Deshaun to have a pretty clean pocket for the most part in this game, and when he does, he's an MVP caliber quarterback for sure. He didn't get sacked at all last week, and look what he did. He had a heck of a game. I don't see that happening again. You can't really match a performance like that 2 weeks in a row, but I still do think that the Texans will win this game. This will be a good game for sure. I really would like to see a healthy Patrick Mahomes in this game, though. If he's not healthy, then that kind of tarnishes it a little bit. I love seeing good teams play good teams at full strength. I hate seeing the issues when you have a starting tackle out, or starting quarterback out, or banged up and stuff like that. I just want a clean, injury-free matchup between two elites in the AFC, which I think these two teams are. But yeah, with that being said, I do like Houston in this game. It should be a good one for sure. And ladies and gentlemen, it took us till week 6, but we have officially the Toilet Bowl game of the year for sure. I don't think it gets any worse than this. Really, it doesn't. If you guys don't know what game I'm talking about, you will very soon, or you probably already know. But it's the 0-5 Redskins at the 0-4 Dolphins. Yeah. that I've seen a lot of headlines with this game that it's so bad it could be good, which I don't know. I don't plan on spending much time invested into this game at all. Watching it when it happens and covering it now, covering it afterwards. Redskins are 4-point favorites in this game. The Dolphins are going on a historic run of being outscored by 137 points this season. It's unfreaking real. But they're struggling. I mean, they're a struggling team. Many would say that they're tanking. They won't say that, but you kind of figure they are with the big pieces that they've gotten rid of. They're trying to rebuild for next season, obviously. This is going to be the first game without Jay Gruden. Obviously, Callahan's going to take over as the head coach, interim head coach. When it all comes down to it, these are both really, really bad teams. Really nothing too good to look forward to in this game at all. I look for this game to be a blackout, honestly. But when it all comes down to it, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I like Case Keenum over Josh Rosen. I mean, really, it's just chicken bad over evil, I guess. It's not really. There's really not much to say there, and apparently this week in practice, it's been very, very hard, very physical, and Washington does not have the loser mentality at all. I see them as a more motivated team coming into this game. The Dolphins will say that they're motivated. They'll say everything that needs to be said, but when it all comes down to it, they're not. It shows in their effort and whatnot. This is just a pitiful game. It's Redskins. That's all I got. 3-2 Eagles at the 3-2 Vikings. Good game. Last time the Eagles were there in that venue, they won the Super Bowl 52. So a little homecoming for them. Vikings are 3-point favorites in this game. This is a good matchup, a good strength versus strength game. It'll be interesting to watch. The Eagles come in with a NFL best 63 yards a game against the run. Obviously, we know what Dalvin Cook can do. He's the second leading rusher in the NFL. So something's got to give there. I kind of just give it a clean. I just call it flat. I say neither team's gonna. There's gonna be pushing back and forth. Cook's not gonna have the greatest game, but they're not gonna have the best game against the run. I don't think. I just think that's the way it's gonna play out. It's gonna come down to the quarterbacks, and I don't like either one of these quarterbacks, but I got to go with Carson Wentz. He's definitely been playing a lot better than Kirk Cousins has. It was reported a former Redskin teammate that he had said that he's the problem with the Vikings across the board. They're solid defensively, running the ball, obviously. They've got great talent at receiver. He's the problem. He's the reason why they're not winning games. So, yeah, he gets thrown under the bus. Poor guy, but, his just carelessness with the football just leads it to that. He's going to be scrutinized for that. I like the Eagles in this game because of that. Like I said, should make for a pretty good game for sure. Very interesting. But I do like the Eagles. The 4-1 Saints at the 2-3 Jaguars. Jaguars are favored in this game with 3 points, if you can believe that. That's what I was saying to you earlier when I was saying that this home field advantage has just got everybody all crazy. Just thinking, I don't know. I don't know. It's probably I'll probably get proven wrong with it. As far as it goes, because I'm not looking at that at all when I'm looking at these games. It's been reported that Jalen Ramsey is expected to play in this game. So for you Jacksonville fans, that's something to look forward to. He still says he struggles with the back problem, but I think he was limited in practice. He looks to play. He's expected. I think he's questionable, but he's expected to play. Man, this game just comes down to just the Saints defense. I really, really like them and how well they play. I think they'll take this game. Minshew Mania will be crazy down there. I believe there's a lot of local fans that for the high school that he went to. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on where that was. I believe it was someplace I think it was either in Upper Florida or maybe Alabama, something like that. But he's Georgia, somewhere along the border. But they're traveling upwards of 600 miles to see him. It's also the Jaguars' homecoming week, I saw, so they're going to have like 80 former players come back. They're going to be pumping up this game for sure. I like Bridgewater, though. You can't take anything away from what he's been able to do. This was one of those matchups prior to his first game as a starter I liked. And I still kind of do like him just because of how well their defense hasn't phased off at all. They still are playing really, really well. I like what they're able to do, especially Lattimore. He's playing lights out at corner. So, yeah, I definitely do like the Saints in this game. I think it'll be a very good game, very competitive. It'll be, Minshew will probably make it very interesting for those of them who have kept up on him and watched him play. But I just think that defense is just going to be too much for him, and I think Bridgewater is going to, be enough. One thing to keep in mind, though, is, like I said earlier, Kamara is questionable. He's got an ankle problem, so he might not see a lot of time. And, if Teddy doesn't play the Teddy that we've seen him play the last 3 weeks, then they could be in trouble. And, Jacksonville being at home, maybe they get a little spark, maybe a turnover or something, and they've got a chance. This game is, is a lot better than, the records would say. The 2-3 is just a disservice to, how well that this team has been able to play, because they've been very competitive in their games that they've played outside of their first game against Kansas City, but that was obviously, we know what happened in that game with Foles going down. Now we move on to a NFC West matchup, the 4-0 49ers and the 3-2 Rams. I don't think this whole home field advantage thing that I was talking about earlier can be expressed any greater than this right here. We have a Rams team that's obviously struggling, lost the last 2 games. They're playing at home against a undefeated 49ers team that has done nothing short of just dominated pretty much everybody that they've played outside of Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay. They pretty much dominated Tampa Bay too, but the score kind of says otherwise. But you get what I'm trying to say. Rams are 3-point favorites in this game. I don't see it. I don't see how. I don't see how they can do that, because I believe Seattle was a 1-point favorite in their game against Cleveland. I don't know. It's just a divisional game. Maybe that has a lot to do with it. But one thing I will say is Gurley is doubtful for this game, so that is not good at all, because if I had any keys to victory for the Rams, it would be that they need to balance their offense up and have a nice balanced attack, run the ball a lot more. Jared Goff has thrown the ball for 222 attempts. That's just unreal. And it's not worked out for him either. I believe he's had upwards of like 100, I believe it was like 117 in the last 2 games, and he's 0-2. So they need that's just my takeaway from that. And but one thing I will say though is that this 49ers team is very, very good. It's hard to say anything bad about a team that's undefeated, considering they're one of 2 teams that is. But I'll say it. Their weakest point in that team is Garoppolo. Garoppolo, he's looked kind of composed, and he looks like he's got his head right in a lot of these games. But then he's got these games like even last week with how well they played against Cleveland. He still looks like a young quarterback. He's an old veteran. He's been in the league for a while, but he hasn't been a starter for a while, and they mentioned that in the game. Actually said Baker Mayfield has more starts than Garoppolo has. You got to consider the injury that he had. And yeah, if this team wants to, really take it to the next level, I think Garoppolo has to play a lot better than what he's playing. And I wouldn't say that so much if it wasn't for the Juszczyk injury. But man, I think that fullback really carries that team running the ball. I think he's a very integral part of them being able to run the ball as well as they do. So maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't think you can do any better without him. But I don't think I'm not saying that they'll be terrible at running the football, but I think he definitely helps out a lot. And this is kind of one of those games where I need to see it. I need to see that they still can, because the 49ers are coming out averaging 200 yards a game rushing the ball. That's just incredible. I mean, that's great. And anybody that's watched the 49ers play any this year, they just look like they just have some just gigantic holes to run through. And all the three backs that they've been using this season with Breda, Coleman, and drawing a blank on the other guy, Mozart or Motard or something. So I believe. Sorry, I'm not, I don't get to watch a whole lot of 49ers games, but I do recognize he has an odd last name. I think he's a third string guy. But regardless, all three of them have been able to run the ball very well. And the Rams defense has allowed 106 yards a game against the run. So I like the 49ers in this game. I really do. It doesn't help, like I said earlier, that Gurley is doubtful. They need the balance. I don't know where else they're going to get the balance if Gurley's going to be down. They're going to ask him to do a lot. And that pass rush is just really, really good with San Francisco. They'll pin their ears back, and they'll get to Goff, and they'll rattle him, force him to make some bad throws. And I just don't like that matchup for them. They'd be a lot better if they had Gurley. I would like their chances a lot better, but I got to go with the Niners for sure on this one. I like them in this game. Next, we have the 1-4 Falcons taking on the 1-3-1 Cardinals. This one makes me want to scratch my head. I don't understand it. 2.5-point favorites are the Falcons. How? Has anybody been watching the Falcons? I mean, yeah, they put up a lot of yards, 33 points last week, but they're not a good team. They're really not. I mean, and I know that Arizona isn't the greatest, but at least they've been competitive in a lot of their games. They got that first win last week. Now, granted, it was against a very struggling Cincinnati team, but hey, sometimes that's all you need to springboard yourself. I like Arizona in this game. Both teams are not very good on defense, but the one thing I will say though is that you kind of look at it. You look at different parts of that defense, and then you look at the parts of offense that what they do well. Atlanta's rush defense allows 120 yards a game. The Cardinals are running the ball at an average of 126 yards a game. I'll take that. I'll take that offense running all over them any day of the week. And Matt Ryan, he's regressing a lot. Like I said, 7 picks so far for him this season. He needs to play a lot better. I know he threw for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns last week, but he's got to get those turnovers down. That's not who he is. He's very his completion percentage has usually been pretty high up there in the NFL for most of his career. So for him to do this is very uncharacteristic. But I just look at the Cardinals. I look for a lot of yards, a lot of points, but I look for the Cardinals just to be able to run all over them, and that be the deciding factor at the end of the day. I like the Cardinals in that game for sure. Next, we got the 2-3 Titans and the 1-4 Broncos. Broncos are a 1.5-point favorite in this game. Yeah, I like Tennessee. Tennessee has just played very carefree football. They've only got 1 turnover this season, and I believe that's a record through the first 5 games to only have 1. And it was off a miffed punt return. So, that stuff shouldn't happen, but it's not an offensive turnover, so that's something you definitely hang your hat on. It's just unfortunate for Denver. They played really well last week, in getting their first win, but they're just so banged up defensively. And, I've spoke on this many, many times, but, the Chargers just are, I don't know what's wrong with them. They can move the ball, but then they shoot themselves in the foot with penalties, turnovers, all that. They had 2 opportunities inside Denver's 5, couldn't capitalize on it. Denver won by 6, but yeah, Denver's just so banged up defensively. And, this is that Tennessee team that they lose, they win, they win, they lose. They kind of just float around there at that 500 mark, 2-3. Look for them to go 3-3. I just see that, it's a historically bad rushing defense for the Broncos. They're allowing 126 yards a game. Tennessee is averaging 115 yards rushing a game. So, yeah, I really like the Titans in this game. That's basically all I got on that. The final game that I will cover today is between the 3-2 Cowboys and the 0-4 Jets. Cowboys are favored by 7 points in this game. This is probably the best thing the Cowboys could ask for. Just getting a matchup like this. It's against the 0-4 Jets, and we know what we've seen with the Jets and how they've played. But this could be a trap game for the Cowboys for sure, and that's the last thing they need to do is be unprepared going into New York and playing them, because they haven't played particularly well. Obviously, their rush defense has just been gashed. But for you Cowboy fans, historically put, they have not allowed 3 consecutive 100-yard rushers in 2 years. So look for them to bounce back and be a lot better on defense, especially in the run. Sam Darnold will start this game, and that's where I say don't look at this as a trap game. This is going to be a very different Jets team. They're very motivated. Le'Veon Bell said this team's going to look completely different because every team does when they, lose their starting quarterback and then he comes back. So look for a very motivated Jets team who plays very, for the most part, very good defense. It's not going to be as easy as the records would determine. Obviously, that I think the Cowboys struggles, and given the fact that Darnold's going to start, makes them only a 7-point favorite. I like them in this game. I don't want to say that they're going to be anything more than a 7-point favorite, really, because I need to see them get back to doing what they do best. They need more balance. Zeke Elliott only has 85 carries so far this season, and that's the fewest that he's had in his career in 5 games. Get him the ball, get him involved, get him 25, 30 touches in this game, whether it be 20 rushes, 5 catches, 10 catches, whatever you got to do. Get him involved in this game because he's your bread and butter of this team. When you don't use him, and Dak's got to, and I know that last week is kind of an exception because of how quickly things got ugly. And, you have to pretty much abandon the run when you're down by that many points. When you're down 31-3, yeah, if you're running, you look like an idiot. But they need to establish the line of scrimmage early on, get the good pass rush going. They've been banged up on the offensive line, but I don't know if it's really affected them too much. I believe they have a rookie that stepped in for Collins' injury, and he's been playing pretty good, pretty solid. He's doing all you could ask him to do. But yeah, Dak's got to play better. Dak turned down allegedly $30 million to get more money. He ain't worth it if he keeps playing like this. I mean, he puts up some great numbers on the stat sheet, but he just needs to take better care of the football than what he has the past couple games. And I like Dallas in this game, obviously, but like I said, it's a true test for him. It's not going to be a cakewalk by any means. And if it is, then we're going to see the Dallas team that many of us thought they would be early in the season. Because I don't think the Jets are as bad as their own 4 record would say. You got to look what they've had to deal with, with the injuries and stuff. And their schedule hasn't been the kindest to them either. Having New England, and then they get Dallas too. But yeah, I look for Dallas to win. I look for it to be a close game, though. I mean, I really do, unless I see something better from Dallas. I really do like them in this NFC. I'm slowly losing faith on them being the best team, just because I just don't like how they've performed. They haven't performed to their level of expectation. So I look for a bounce back game, and if they can, I'll be right there. I'll be right back with them and saying all this nice praise about them. But this is a what have you done for me lately league, and lately these last 2 games, this has been a completely different Dallas team than what we've seen in the beginning. And the first 3 games were against mediocre competition, terrible competition at best. So let's just hope that that's not the narrative and that they actually are a very, very good football team, and we'll find out on Sunday. And that wraps up this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoy it. Like I said before, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if you haven't subscribed, like, comment, and let me know what you guys think overall on the channel and how it's doing and stuff. And if there's anything else you want to hear, whether it be college football, I will say this. I will just put a slight plug in here real quick and say that I do believe this will be a very, very heavy NFL-based channel. I'm not going to take that away from you guys, but I'm also a big college basketball and an NBA fan. So look for that to also be sprinkled into this. I know I've mentioned college football before. That's something that very too possibly could be thrown in here as well. But yeah, for sure. Look for once the NBA season and college basketball season gets rolling, that there will be some coverage of that as well. And overall, this is gonna as this channel and this show evolves, it'll be more geared towards a lot more sports, but mainly a football focus. But that's something to look forward to. Until then, guys, I will talk to you on Monday. Have a good weekend.